Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 141 based on novel. So let's start. However, it was a completely different sight from what was in front of their eyes at that moment. It paled into insignificance in comparison and didn't deserve to be mentioned. Attack. On Sunship, the Sun Herders roared with excitement and took out their spirit weapons. They were fired up and ready to welcome the incoming battle. Hulinga was also fired up by their hot-bloodedness and raised her tiny arms while her face was red with excitement. Her voice was still soft and immature as she shouted loudly, "Attack!" The flood dragons behind her also became excited, and they all stretched out their necks while overflowing with murderous intent. They all opened their mouths to roar, "Maha!" Hulinga jumped onto the back of the dark green flood dragon and pulled out her small sword to point at the sky. She also shouted along with the bunch of dragons. "Maha!" The bunch of dragons was abnormally excited, and before the war even broke out, they brought the little fox into the sky and fought their way through a bunch of devils pouncing at them. "Linga, this girl is really as reckless as the cult master." Xianxiang was driven mad, and she immediately jumped onto the dragon Chilene's back to rush up, so that the little fox wouldn't land in the hands of the enemy. Just as the dragon Chilene was about to raise up, Ling Yuxiu also landed on his back. The two girls looked each other in the eyes and said in unison, "Watch out." Boom. Sunship collided with the body replicator devils and trembled continuously from the impact. There were only 100,000 on Sunship, while the numbers of the body replicator devils were in the millions. Countless devils landed on Sunship, and a bitter fight instantly began. The warriors of the Sun Herder tribe had absorbed the chi of pure yang ever since they were young, so their cultivation was extremely dense and their battle power was astounding. The strength of their corporeal body also far surpassed that of the other races, and even their children, that were 10 to 15 yards tall, had natural god-level power. Their magic power was incomparably pure, and they cultivated pure yang true fire and sun true fire from the moment they were born. Their divine arts were also marvelous, and they had a variety of spirit weapons like bells, cauldrons, swords, buildings, glazed tile pagodas, which were very different from just the path of sword and knife in eternal peace. There was no worthy match for their strikes, as they just blew apart the body replicator devils, but enemies' numbers were simply too high. Hundreds of devils were like hornets that were disturbed as they swarmed up to drown out the Sun Herders one by one. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The body replicator devils opened their huge eyeballs and devil light shot out, covering numerous Sun Herders in thousands of holes. Once they were injured, it was difficult for them to escape the mind control. Hundreds of devils gathered together, and the black light in their eyes would shine on the body of the injured Sun Herder. That person's face would then warp, and their mind would then continuously be tampered. Even their face couldn't be saved from damage. Their eyes would rapidly gather together, and the two eyeballs would fuse to become a huge single one that was situated at the center of the face. Their mouth would start to move downwards and their chin would grow longer and longer, until they become another body replicator, and follow the devils to attack their own tribesmen. Sun Herder Chief brought a few elders to fight with all they had. There was no lack of extremely terrifying opponents among the body replicator devil race, which were strong practitioners that had assimilated. Their abilities were incomparably powerful, and some even wielded devil god weapons to attack. The old chief raised his head and saw dozens of huge dragons slaying enemies in the sky and causing heaven to fall and earth to rend from their battle. The flood dragons had attracted quite a bunch of experts from among the devils. However, there were simply too many devils which continuously surged forth. Why isn't His Highness making a move? Just as the old chief thought that, the 12 legs of Sunship suddenly opened up and walked toward the sky barrier. The speed of Sunship grew faster and faster. The huge ship that was like a land city was actually increasing in speed to rush toward the sky barrier. "Your Highness, what are you doing?" The old chief immediately tore apart a strong practitioner of the devil race in anger. He then rushed toward the heart of Sunship and shouted, "Your Highness, you can't." Boom! With a world-shaking bang, Sunship crashed through the sky barrier and rushed out of the area covered by Sunwell. A huge body replicator, Devil God, was kneeling on the ground there. With two hands supporting its body, it had stabbed its chin into the sky barrier of Sunwell. Behind its body were bone wings, which were vibrating continuously. They would flap once in a while to raise up gusts of black wind. The instant Sunship broke through the sky barrier, that wind blew it backward. The Devil God hurriedly flapped its wings, wanting to fly up, but Qin Mu suddenly grabbed onto the chains and exerted his force to swing the sun that was in midair. The old chief had a blank gaze, as he stared at Qin Mu swinging the sun of their sun-herder tribe, as a weapon to smash it ruthlessly against the body replicated Devil God, blasting him into smithereens with a single blow. My God! The old chief's legs became weak and he collapsed onto the floor on his butt. His Highness is too violent. As long as he gets the chance, he will stop at nothing. Hiding in the area covered by Sunwell and getting attacked by people was definitely not Qin Mu's style. His way was to grab any chance to land a fatal blow with a lightning-fast strike. Butcher had once told him that it wasn't hard to see the chance, but only those who could grab it ended up known as heroes. Those who saw the chance yet hid and did not make a move were cowards. Numerous people that were stronger than Butcher would usually be defeated by him, because he was brave and pushed forward boldly. He never considered prudence, and just grabbed every chance he saw. The chance that Qin Mu grabbed was to taking advantage of the moment when the Devil God used itself to send in the body replicator devils into Sunwell and couldn't break free. That was why he had Sunship break through the world formed by Sunwell and swung the sun to smash his opponent into smithereens. Being trapped in Sunwell and defending against the opponent's attacks wasn't his style. This would only make him follow the opponent's rhythm and suffer from continuous encirclement, letting the opponent attack however they wanted. That was why he changed the rhythm by rushing out and destroying the leader straight away. You fight your way, and I'll fight my way. If I win, you're dead. It was that simple. And it was the essence of Butcher's knife skills. Sun-Herder Chief's body was still slightly weak. He looked at the rattling chains in Qin Mu's hands as he dragged the sun, which he had used to smash the Devil God back. That sun had burned the surroundings and the ground had turned into bubbling lava. Suddenly, the corners of Qin Mu's eyes twitched, and so did those of the old chief. They had heard cracking sounds coming from the sun. Qin Mu blinked and gently shook the chains to flick this sun up. He didn't use all of his strength, as he seemed to be afraid of breaking the sun. The old chief stood up shakily, but right then, the sun that had floated back into the air suddenly gave off a loud cracking sound again. The old chief looked up and saw an alarming crack on his tribe's treasure. He couldn't help the energy that left his limbs again. It's all right, it's all right. Qin Mu's voice boomed as he consoled, it won't shatter. Don't worry. The body replicator, Devil God, had been shattered in one strike, but there were still countless devils frantically attacking Sunship. They continued their slaughter and assimilation of warriors of the Sun-Herd tribe. At the same time, countless devils ate each other, the bigger ones swallowing the smaller ones, so their bodies would grow larger and larger. Their cultivation also grew stronger like a rolling snowball. 3 devils who were growing larger and larger stood on Sunship while other devils rushed into their mouths, feeding them. The body replicator, Devil God, was not the true body. Qin Mu was astonished. He shouted, and the sun in the sky burst forth with incomparably intense true fire which flooded down and burned through Sunship. Sun true fire blazed and turned the entire Sunship into a flaming divine ship. Countless devils shrieked as they got burned, slowly turning into black smoke that vanished in flames. Qin Mu controlled Sunship. Although it was a treasure to guide the sun to rise from the east and set in the west, it also had an extremely strong offense. In the past, when Yang Jingjing had controlled it, she couldn't unleash all of its power because the sun had been extinguished. But once Qin Mu had reignited the sun, the might of the ship had instantly unleashed. Even though Sun True Fire was incomparably terrifying, it wasn't much of a threat to the sun herders. They had lived on the ship ever since they were young, and what they breathed was the qi of pure yang, so they had an extremely high resistance to true fire. Hu Linga, Ling Yuxiu, and Sai Yinxiang were fighting together with the bunch of dragons and the dragon Qilin in the meantime, so the Sun True Fire didn't sweep past there. The little fox, who was standing on the dark green flood dragon, was very excited and kept on shouting, but she couldn't do much. Compared to the bunch of flood dragons, her abilities were insignificant. Qin Mu burned countless body replicator devils, but the 3 abnormally large devils were not burnt to death. Instead, they crawled rapidly among the intense fire and suddenly leaped up. The bone wings on their backs flapped as they rushed toward Qin Mu, who was in the center of the ship. One of the devils swooped down and stretched its hand out to pull out the devil god halberd that was stabbed in a huge hole. His aura then instantly erupted. "Don't use the sun," the old chief shouted the moment he saw Qin Mu wanting to swing the sun again. "If you smash it once more, it's really going to shatter. We old bones will block those devils for you." Troublesome. Qin Mu stopped and surveyed his surroundings, searching for the true body of the body replicator devil god. The old chief shouted loudly, calling over the elders to face the 3 devils. Their bodies were incomparably huge and their strength was also great. Even when facing the old chief and the elders, they were not in a disadvantageous situation. The old chief grabbed a bronze bell, and it rang continuously. It didn't look like a treasure from the mortal realm as layers of runes appeared on its walls. The ringing circled non-stop around the bronze bell, and sun-shaped fireballs came flying out to bombard the enemies. However, the broken halberd was still a devil god weapon, so it could easily slice apart all the divine arts from the bronze bell. It was extremely powerful. Qin Mu looked around and saw the deep and profound darkness of great ruins. He still didn't know where the true body of the body replicator devil god was located. Suddenly, the thump of heavy footsteps came from the darkness, and the ground trembled continuously from the vibrations. The footsteps came from all directions and became faster and faster. Suddenly, the noise vanished, then changed into the sound of something breaking through the air. It was very sharp, and Qin Mu's heart sunk. He saw numerous body replicator devils with huge bodies flying over through the darkness, straight for Sunship. It was indeed not its true body. Qin Mu's heart moved slightly, and carefree sword suddenly came out from its sheath to float silently in the sky without moving. On Sunship, the sun hung high up in the sky as warriors gripped their weapons anxiously. They looked above and watched the numerous huge devils covering the rays of the sun as they came to Sunship. The size of their shadows struck fear into their hearts. At that moment, sword lights burst forth, and it was as if there was a silver sun in the center of Sunship. The terrifying sword will and sword chi shot off in all directions like sunlight. The divine might of carefree sword swept through the sky, and black rain started falling on the enemy. Countless broken limbs fell and almost filled Sunship completely. Yet there was a devil in the sky that had avoided all the sword lights and flown near the 4 pillars. It passed through 2 of them and went straight for Qin Mu. Hum! The huge eye in the center of the devil's face flashed with black light as it shone on Qin Mu's face. The 4 claws gripped onto Qin Mu's chest and dug deep into his flesh. The black light from the devil's eye became darker and darker as though it would swallow everything, so the spirit and soul of a person to continuously fall even though it had already fallen. On the ship, everyone cried out in alarm. The face of the old chief and the elders changed drastically. They hurriedly abandoned the three devils and rushed over to Qin Mu frantically. However, the three devils immediately flew over and delayed them, making it hard for them to save Qin Mu. "You were able to come here because I let you." Qin Mu's eyes stared straight into the devil eye of the devil as his gaze flickered. "I want to use your shared mind to know where your true body is hiding." The gaze of the devil shone onto Qin Mu's eyes, and countless voices rose in his mind. It was as if he could see countless figures, and every one of them belonged to a body replicator devil. Everything in his vision vanished, but for the forest formed from the figures of the devils. It grew larger and larger as the figures of millions of devils formed while continuing to spread out. The mind and consciousness of the devils flooded Qin Mu's mind as they tried to assimilate him. He executed Overlord Body 3 elixir technique, and his spirit embryo fused with his soul. A huge sun instantly appeared in his mind which surrounded the spirit embryo and protected the spirit platform, burning all the consciousness that was flooding over into ashes. There were more and more figures in the darkness, and it made his heart palpitate. With the minds of so many devils converging together, his spirit platform was about to be drowned out. Once that happened, it wouldn't take long for his spirit embryo to be assimilated by the devils. That was why he had to find the location of the devil god before his spirit platform was invaded. At that moment, his gaze seemed to cross numerous sites, and he saw a devil god that was creeping among mountains and rivers. He was situated between two mountains, which he was holding with his four limbs. Between them was a river while behind a door. From it, body replicator devils poured out like flood and surged over continuously. Countless devils were sprinting through the river surface and flying in the sky. They swallowed each other over and over again to transform into the large devils. The instant Qin Mu saw the devil god also saw him. He raised his head and his huge eye filled with bafflement as though he was puzzled. What followed afterward was that devil god, who was creeping between the two mountains, saw a bright light shining in the darkness. It was becoming brighter and brighter. A ball of light was rushing over, and it was becoming larger and larger as its speed became faster and faster. It soon became a huge sun that slid down at an angle from the sky, appearing above the river channel. Wherever the huge sun passed, the river water would be evaporated instantly, and all the devils on the way would be turned to ashes or vaporize. The huge sun distorted the space in the surroundings, and caused the mountains to shake. It looked as though it had become a giant, who was doing a strange dance. Devil language came from the mouth of the devil god, and was transmitted into Qin Mu's mind by waves of consciousness. "Little child who only likes to smash thing on a whim." His body trembled violently, and the bone wings behind his back rattled. They flew off from his body as though they were devil god weapons, their shape similar to that of the broken halberd on Sunship. They shot toward the huge sun. Kai, Kai, Kai. The halberds shot into the huge sun. It became slower and slower, until finally landing in the river valley and sliding thousands of yards forward before coming to a halt. Kacha. Sunship's sun split into two, and a smile broke out on the face of the devil god. However, at that moment, Sun Jade Eye rolled out from the broken sun and tumbled one round forward. The Sun Jade Eye, which was several yards in height, suddenly straightened its pupil and a snow-white light shot out, slicing the huge eye of the devil god in half. He gave a miserable, world-shaking shriek as he dodged the attack. The beam of light sliced the skin next to his eye, so deep that the bone could be seen. Behind the broken sun, Carefree Sword transformed into a trail of light, which went into his mouth and came out the other side after having pierced his brain. The sword then turned around and returned through the back of the head and came out at the front. Carefree Sword was like a needle, threading to and fro through the devil god's head over 1,000 times. It was also like a cold light swirling rapidly around his neck. When it was retracted back, the head of the devil god was filled with holes. The neck swayed, and the head, which was the size of a mountain, slid off. The body landed against the door that was behind the devil god's body, and the noise rang through the mountains. The corpse of the headless devil god slumped down, and the claws that were gripping the two mountains loosened. The body fell into the river channel below. The door behind was also blocked by it. In the meantime on Sunship, the warriors of the Sun-Herder tribe were in a bitter struggle, since there were simply too many devils flooding over. Even if the Sun-Herders were natural warriors, they still found it hard to withstand the attack. Many people died and were assimilated by the devils. Yet suddenly, all of the devils froze on the spot in a daze. The next moment, all their faces distorted as though two souls inside were fighting over the control of the body. The eye on some of the devils' faces split into two before merging back together, which looked very strange. Most of the strong and sturdy Sun-Herders stopped their attacks, at a loss. Their enemies had been fighting back with ferocious a second ago, but the next, they had all fallen into a strange state. After a moment, the devil who had been fighting with Sun-Herder chief crumbled and transformed back into a bunch of body replicator devils. The face of the devil in the lead changed, and the devil markings on its body receded rapidly. After a moment, it transformed into a woman with transparent feather clothing made of scales. Her figure was elegant while her skin was fair and even a little translucent. The woman looked around in a daze, completely unaware that her scales didn't cover her body well. What is this place? Her eyes were filled with doubt. She didn't open her mouth to talk, but a message was sent out with brain waves so everyone could hear her voice and understand what she was saying. Why am I here? Soon after, more devils changed. All of them were dressed like the woman, the clothes on their bodies were not truly clothes. Instead, they were delicate wings formed from scales, and there was more than a single pair. Their whole bodies were full of wings of all sizes. Their feathers were scaled, which was a very rare sight even among beasts. Only a few of such creatures existed in great ruins. However, there were no humans with scaled feathers. And they could actually even change. The woman who woke up first quickly noticed her clothes were not covering her body, and her scaled feathers changed according to what she wanted. They shimmered, and their color changed into black, making it seem like the woman was wearing a black gown. The scaled feathers on the others also changed colors to cover their bodies. Once all of them were dressed, they looked around in a daze, having no idea where they were. The Sun-Herders on Sunship were also in a daze. They didn't know why the devils could have transformed like that. Sun-Herder chief had a guess though. They should be a foreign race, which got assimilated by the body replicator devil god. Now that the main consciousness died, the control over them has disappeared, and they have regained their freedom. This means, body replicator devil god is dead. The elders beside him revealed looks of ecstasy. Suddenly, a rattling sound came from their backs, and they immediately turned around to take a look. Behind them, Qin Mu was holding onto the pillars with two hands while the other two were dragging the chains back. They were embedded in the sun and were treasures that tied it down, so it was pretty exhausting to pull them back. The old chief couldn't help becoming worried again. He immediately came to the pillars in the center and raised his head. Your Highness, why have you thrown the sun out again? Qin Mu lowered his head and hesitated, as he saw the man's hopeful gaze. This? After a moment, the old chief saw the sun being dragged back. Two black lumps were there, looking like huge mountains in a hemisphere shape. The old chief and the elders stared blankly. The other Sun-Herders on Sunship also looked at the two black lumps in a daze. Not only had their sun been extinguished, it was even split into two halves. Rattle, rattle. The sound of the chains being pulled was very painful to the ears. Qin Mu pulled the two halves of the sun back, and called his carefree sword. It lifted Sun Jade Eye and flew leisurely back toward him. Chief, 2 good news. The first one is that body replicator devil god is really dead, Qin Mu said with a guilty conscience. Stupefied, the old chief stared at him. When he spoke, his voice sounded like it came from a machine. What about the other good news? We can change a new sun now. The old chief turned his head to look at their Highness, wanting to cry, but no tears came out. Truly good, he muttered. Qin Mu pulled the 2 halves of the black sun back, and there were tens of thousands of scaled feather mutants following behind it, coming closer to Sunship. Some of the people didn't manage to catch up to the sun, and ended up dying in the darkness of great ruins. The remaining one knew how dangerous the darkness was and warned each other. More and more of them then caught up to the sun, and only then were they spared from death. They didn't rely on voice to communicate, but instead relied on their brain waves. Without talking, they were still able to inform the others, which was very unusual. Qin Mu dragged the 2 halves of the sun back onto Sunship when a voice rang out in his mind. Heavenly Feather Clan, Yu Zhaoqing, pays her respects to the owner of this place. Qin Mu was slightly stunned as he looked at the woman in the black gown that was walking toward him. Her actions were sincere, natural, and unrestrained. The black gown quickly changed to a light yellow color. When she came to the side of the sun divine pillars, not only were her clothes light yellow in color, their style was even similar to that of the old chief and the rest. The scaled feathers on her body had to be able to change in shape as well as color. Qin Mu loosened his grip on the sun pillars, and the 2 arms under his armpits gradually shrunk back. The leg behind his buttocks also shrunk back into his body while the terrifying energy of Sunship receded continuously. After a moment, his body returned to its normal size. Qin Mu hurriedly hid behind a pillar, and took out a new set of clothes to replace his tattered ones. After some grooming, he came out from the back of the pillar. When he was holding the sun pillars, his strength had risen tremendously and his corporeal body had become extremely gigantic, bursting open his shirt. Even though his shirt was a spirit weapon, Qin Mu had transformed into a 300 yards giant at that time, and he was like a heavenly god. He had exceeded the limits of the clothes, and with the 3rd leg growing out from his tailbone, they were ripped apart. Chief Yu, Qin Mu greeted. Yu Zhaoqing of Heavenly Feathers race looked at him with astonishment. Qin Mu had been a heavenly, godlike existence earlier, yet he had suddenly become a young man. The woman's clothes spread out on the ground as she paid her respects earnestly. Qin Mu immediately pointed toward sun-haired chief and smiled. I'm not the chief of this place, he is. I don't dare to exceed my place. The old chief shook his head and said, under the whole heaven, every spot is the sovereign's ground. Sun-haired tribe is also your highness's territory, so your highness is naturally the owner of this place. Qin Mu could only receive the respects of the woman from Heavenly Feathers race. Chief Yu, this place is not suitable for talking. Have your clansmen come on board and follow us to Sun Well to have a talk. Yu Zhaoqing's consciousness sent out waves, and soon, all Heavenly Feather clansmen came on board. Qin Mu activated Sunship once more, and walked back into the area shrouded by Sun Well. On the ship, the millions of Heavenly Feather clansmen looked around at the strange little world, the clothes on their body changing colors continuously. Their figures were slightly taller and thinner than those of ordinary humans. Both the men and women were very beautiful, and their clothes changed according to their mood. When it was good, their clothes would become a garish display. After letting go of the sun pillars, Qin Mu was slightly worried about touching the pillars again. The sun had been broke into half by him, and without it acting as the balance, the terrifying energy of Sunship had started to absorb his life force. In just a short while, his feet had already been swallowed. That was why he had taken the chance when he shrunk to jump out, but his legs were still sore and weak. Your Highness, you need to be more solemn about meeting the chief of Heavenly Feather Clan, you can't neglect her. The old chief invited Qin Mu to enter Sun Shrine, before inviting Yu Zhaoqing to come forth and meet him. Your Highness. In Sun Shrine, Yu Zhaoqing walked forward and held Qin Mu's face, gently touching his forehead with hers. What are you doing? Hu Linga was bringing Ling Yuxiu and Cai Yunxiang into Sun Shrine when she saw that scene. She shouted angrily, "How can you kiss?" Yu Zhaoqing looked curiously at the little girl that was barely above her thigh. She bent down and clasped Hu Linga's cheeks, before touching her forehead with her own in a gentle manner. Hu Linga instantly felt some stuff appear in her mind. It was the language of Heavenly Feather Clan. At the same time, she also felt that Yu Zhaoqing had used it to trade for the language of her world. Hu Linga came to realization. Oh, so it's not kissing. I thought you were taking advantage of my master. Yu Zhaoqing smiled and bent over to give her a peck on the lips. Hu Linga instantly blushed and her heart became restless. She swayed as though she was drunk and said embarrassedly, "A kiss is nothing much as well." Yu Zhaoqing walked over to Ling Yuxiu, and her heart became restless while she looked down at her chest. However, Yu Zhaoqing only touched foreheads with her and didn't kiss her. Once she noticed it, she let out a sigh of relief. Cai Yunxiang also touched foreheads with her and smiled. So it's exchanging language. Is this a gift of your Heavenly Feather Clan? Or is it a divine art? It's a gift. Yu Zhaoqing opened her mouth and spoke their language. Even though it was still not as good as that of native speakers, she was getting better as she spoke. Your Highness killed the body replicator, Devil God, and released our clansmen. We of Heavenly Feather Clan are unable to express the gratitude we feel. Qin Mu shook his head and said, I didn't do it to save all of you, just to protect myself, so there's no need to thank me. Does your Heavenly Feather Clan lives in great ruins as well? We aren't situated here, but in another world, Yu Zhaoqing said. The world we came from has been seized by body replicator, Devil God, and nearly all of our clansmen have been swallowed by him. Luckily for us, Your Highness rescued us from being wiped out. Even though Your Highness isn't forcing us to repay the favor, we can't just not do it. The world all of you are from should be the one behind the Devil God's corpse, right? Why is it linked to great ruins? Qin Mu asked with curiosity. About 20,000 years ago, our world collided with another world, and the space between them overlapped. We would notice it above our heads at midnight, and it was a marvelous sight, Yu Zhaoqing said. The emperor of that world sent a god over, and ordered our Heavenly Feather Clan to surrender and pay allegiance to him. Only after that did we learn that the other world we saw was called Founding Emperor Empire. However, one day, an abnormal change happened there and it turned into great ruins. Our Heavenly Feather world also suffered. When night came, our sky was no longer the starry one. Instead, it was covered with the blackest darkness. Sometime later, body replicator Devil God invaded our world. This video will end here.